Welcome, everyone. This is our November edition of um, Urban Updates. I am happy to welcome everyone, and we are really excited to bring um, Mary and Roger Winstead in from Beautiful Edibles. They are in Paradise, Indiana, and they're going to talk to us a lot about mushroom cultivation, utilizing mushroom bags and spent mushroom product in mulching, as well as what Mary just said before we press record. Their operation is definitely growing all kinds of produce, but they're also growing other farmers and growing community, and so we're really excited to welcome them. So Mary, if you want to share your screen, uh, you can take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Um, I'm looking for my presenter notes. Okay. Good morning. I'm Mary Winstead. I'm co-owner of Beautiful Edibles with my husband, Roger. And just a little bit of background on us. Our farm was established in 2015, and we're a small-scale market garden. We offer year-round online farm store, and we sell retail and wholesale bulk, and we run every week of the year, so 52 weeks a year. Um, so in our background information, this is some history of the property. Roger grew up on this property. It's been in his family for almost 100 years. Uh, Roger holds a landscape architectural degree from Purdue, and I was an accountant. We both left our careers um, and to pursue a dream of farming, is what my notes say. We're located on the last 2 acres of the family homestead, and it's in Paradise, Indiana, which is near the Evansville and by the Castle Schools, if you're familiar with the area. Um, I grew up right around the corner from here. My parents had a market garden. They usually kept 4 to 5 acres of strawberries, and we had a farm stand. Um, this property, if you can see to the left in 1982 at the top, it was 60 years as unimproved horse pasture. We had poor quality amendments. We had a lot of invasive growth. Um, but as of 2017, in the top right-hand corner, you see that we have the suburbs of Evansville on all 4 sides of us. 3 sides to the north, south, east, and west, and then south of us, a large subdivision in that area too. And then that's a fall shot of the greenhouses, our caterpillar tunnels, actually. Bottom right corner and the bottom left corner is Roger and his dad planting a garden in the 80s before we had the subdivisions around us. Oops. So success and failures as we farmed for the first few years, we started seeing more frequent and heavier rainfalls and a lot of field flooding and weed growth. Um, we used silage tarps. We purchased a lot of compost. We created raised permanent beds and drainage ditches and areas, and then we used thick wood chip mulch. And that was some of the ways that we helped build our soil health and also deal with the issues that we had. Um, Failures that we saw as we began were just a lot of weed pressure. We had limited time as we were farming part-time and working off farm, limited money, a lot of pests. And then we saw a lot of disease and just had poor production at first. So we started using the ground cover. This was something that Roger was familiar with in the landscaping industry, and he said, I can help with the weed control. Um, and it worked out really well, but it brings other problems, I will say that, like slugs, voles, and there are some disease uh, issues when using the ground cover. We also began growing internal tunnels. In 2017, we built two 100-foot caterpillar tunnels on the property, and growing in there seemed like it would solve a lot of our problems. It also allowed us to extend our season year. We were growing 4 seasons out in the fields, but it wasn't as efficient as what the 4 season extension was once we started with the tunnels in 2017. We're still using the floating row covers uh, and some plastic culture over the crops, but it was just easier to do within the tunnels. And it's much nicer to stand inside a tunnel that's about 60 or 70 degrees with the sunshine in the wintertime than it is to stand out in a snowstorm. So they allowed us to have a steady revenue stream. They decreased the weather effects, and we began dialing in our production. We started doing regular soil tests and doing amendment recommendations from our agronomists. We followed an organic fertility program, and that included using compost teas and the application of the mycorrhiza fungi. And those have a symbiotic relationship with the roots of the plants. And we're seeing much more of that in the industry now. But at the time in 2017, that was not something that everyone around us used. But the more we studied it and looked at different programs, we saw that this was an important part of the farm for us to have not only the amendments to the soil and the soil health with insects and beneficials, but also with the fungi that was in the soil. And that was something that we were seeking and looking to do. So just some pictures of the farm. These are some of the older times. We found that we were doing uh, amendments to the soil and working on trying to have tomatoes was our main crop. We grow about 750 to 800 tomato plants during the year. We do a lot of biointense companion planting. Um, we do, we grow greens and lettuces in the wintertime. So that can mean that we would have 3 to maybe even 8 crops in each bed during the year as we're going through successions. What we use for tomato fertility um, was to increase blooms and fruit, but that doesn't work well with greens and brassica where you don't want blooming to happen. From the beginning, we worked with a lot of restaurants. We got into a niche market where we were selling edible flowers. And that is one of the things that we were known from the very beginning, and thus comes kind of the name Beautiful Edibles. Um, because we were able to sell those flowers from the vegetables and use them as part of our edible flowers mix. And that happens, as some of you might know, early in the spring. I mean, we can have flowers in February and March here with brassicas that might be going to bloom if we've overwintered them, and we start getting warmer temperatures in this early spring, especially inside of the tunnels. So again, here's some pictures of the farm. This is some of the lettuces that I'm harvesting with the edible flowers. You see in the middle, that's a close-up shot of bumblebees on celosia. That bed was in front of our tunnel facing out towards the street in the suburbs here. Uh, we get a lot of pollinators and good pollination within the tunnels by having the edible flowers and crops like that right up next to the other plants that were growing. In this case, you see that we actually had uh, on the trellises in front of the tunnel, we had tomatoes there, but as far as the general population saw as they drove down the street, they usually just saw the red and gold flowers there out front. And then the bottom right-hand corner shows beans, is one of the rotations that we throw in as green beans, like all during the season. We'll run a crop of those through. That's like about 90 days, somewhere around in there. We can run a crop of beans through, harvest those, and then move that bed on to something else. Here's wintertime growing. So this shows the tunnels. This was before we had the end walls on them, and we've got the floating row covers. This was construction of, these are Farmers Friends Gothic tunnels. This shows us putting the end wall on the Gothic that's out near the street. And then you see Roger standing there, the bottom right-hand corner, with the row covers over the plants. We'll usually always keep, most of the season, unless something's tall, it has either an insect netting or a floating row cover, and there's a couple reasons for that. Not necessarily insects as much as we do apply beneficial insects, and we put about 30,000 beneficial ladybugs out in a season. It helps keep them inside with our crops when we have the insect netting or the floating row cover over. It also keeps out those just regular pests that we have, squirrels, rabbits, birds, things like that, from damaging the crop. So it helps with a lot of that. And this was a slide that I had from another slideshow presentation. So the bottom left shows that in the years as we moved from 2 tunnels to 5 tunnels in 2021, we had to mechanize more tasks, which we were doing a lot of hand watering. We put all of the irrigation systems in. We use a low PSI irrigation system with drip tape at the base of the plants, and then fertigation to apply nutrients and amendments through that drip tape in system. So in 2020, we began our fungi expansion. We had grown and foraged mushrooms for about 15 years before this. Roger and I both were avid mushroom foragers and campers, loved nature and outdoors. We got married in 2027, I believe it is. I'm consulting with him.
2027.
2007, sorry. And that was one of the things that we shared in common, is that we both love mushrooms. And then in 2020, we were doing CSA. We could sell everything we could grow that year. We'd been doing mushrooms for ourselves on logs, and we wanted to provide our CSA customers something going into the fall and the winter. And we had experience growing shiitakes and oysters on logs, and we did those in the tunnels for ourselves so that we could have them later in the season. And we designed a low-tech mushroom grow, and we found a provider to give us, or to sell us, the mushroom blocks. So this is what the mushroom blocks look like when they're fruiting. We're mimicking what the tree and the bark with the mushrooms colonized inside a tree would look like out in the forest, by having the substrate within the plastic. And then when the mushroom is fully colonized, then we cut the plastic bag and the mushroom fruits out the front of it. This facility is not here at our farm in Newburgh. We partnered with, he's actually our landlord, Scott Anderson of APE Aquaponics. He had an urban grow facility, aquaponics facility, up on the 3rd floor in the building that we're in. It's an old parking garage in downtown Evansville. he had some empty office space, especially after 2020, and he offered us that empty space to test and then put in place a full mushroom grow facility. So this is our colonization room. I think this is right after a delivery or close to the time when we got a delivery. And we typically have about 100 to 150 new blocks delivered every month. These weigh about 10 to 12 pounds each. The substrate inside of them, or their growing media, is hardwood mulch, non-GMO soybean hulls, has some oats in there, and then the mushroom spores. And we'll have about 200 blocks in various stages moving through this process, from the colonization room into coolers if they need to slow down, and then into the fruiting room. And then those blocks will stay in there and fruit like 2 or 3 times until they start not having very big flushes of fruiting. And once that's diminished and they're no longer viable, then we take them out of the growing process. And then the question that we had from the very beginning is what to do with the spent mushroom substrate. At first, it was pretty easy. We just threw them into the compost pile, or we brought them home and found a place for them to live and maybe flush again at the farm. But as we got bigger, 150 blocks per month at 10 pounds each is about 1,500 pounds of organic material. So we began closing our loop by returning the wood substrate and that fungi, mycelium, back to the farm as a soil amendment. So this is an example of composting in place. What we do is we add layers of spent mushroom substrate with layers of wood chips. We pretty much started doing this in between the aisles because we needed to build a permanent bed space, raised beds. And this was a good place for us to just let it compost right there. And then as we reshaped the beds and made them higher, we could just take that composted material the next year, put it up into the beds. We found that it would break down within 6 to 8 months. And then we would have really nice composted material in that time period. So Roger here is, we've got a layer of wood chips down the pathway. You see that the bed top is raised up. He's putting mushroom blocks smashed up down the pathway. You see some sitting there that are not smashed yet. And then we'll usually put a layer of wood chips over the top of that again. And I noted on here that it makes so for some cushy pathways it's really comfortable to have your knees on to kneel. And it does hold moisture really well. We found that we are kind of operating as a semi-dry farm as far as watering. We can cut down our watering quite a bit because this areas just stay moist but not wet. It'll draw a lot of the moisture, the excess moisture off the beds, but let the beds stay nice and moist for the plants. And then here's another example of us using like large amounts of blocks. And this is something we've recommended to other people who wanted to get the substrate from us, to just lay it out. We were making raised beds here. We just laid out the blocks, applied the wood chips over the top of them, and in less than a year, we had quality composted soil. We did get mushrooms that flushed off of these beds, and then we ate them. So traded them. So we had several farmers that we worked with that said they would rather have the mushrooms that were grown out in the wild versus the ones that we grew inside. They are darker, and I think I've got some pictures in here later on. They get the sunshine. They probably have a higher concentration of vitamin D in them, and they just taste good because they're closer to what you would forage for outside. So, um, here's an example of something that, and we have done this, but this year we got a little ahead. We needed to take care of a bed that had some compaction issues. Um, we deal with a lot of clay soil here. That's compaction has been the biggest issue that we've had on the entire property. Uh, this area was part of a street expansion, and we wanted to plant flowers there during the year, and some herbs and things. This is forward facing towards the main street, Oak Grove Road, here by our house. So we opened the bed up. You can see where Roger has a tractor going there, and it has a tiller attachment. We broke the blocks up in this case because we wanted them to try to break down faster. So we tilled them in, and it felt like we had a good tilling, as you can see in the middle picture. They were really finely tilled because they were pretty dry. This was after the droughts that we had, beginning of October. It looked really powdery. We went ahead and put the bed top back on, planted Napa cabbages, and that was right at the beginning of October. Watered them in, transplanted those the day after we had done that. So, pros and cons to consider if you're composting in place. Uh, when the substrate is fully colonized, um, one of the things that people in the mushroom industry understand is that if it's disturbed, it'll promote fruiting if the conditions are favorable. So the thought is to think of what when a tree gets struck by lightning, or something occurs to knock it down and it falls in the forest, and then you will see fungi growing on that tree in the fall or the spring because that's the perfect weather conditions. It's wet, it's cool. It's the time for the fungi to crack out of that bark of the tree and start fruiting. And in October, we had 5.45 inches of rain recorded in Evansville. And that was about 2 inches above the normal precipitation for the month. And even though we thought that that substrate was well incorporated into the soil, it broke up fine. Fruiting still occurred because of those extreme wet conditions. And we probably should have let that substrate overwinter and decomposed, and then maybe even let that bed rest before we were planting it out. Um, but you can see in the picture to the left that it actually started lifting the ground cover. It was growing and fruiting so well underneath there. And the middle picture is a picture of those dark oyster mushrooms coming out of the holes where the Napa cabbage is planted. So, um, oh, and I don't know if you can see that well, but there's ladybugs hanging out by the mushrooms. We were just commenting, usually, uh, you do see insects uh, dining on the mushrooms. We saw some beetles, some slugs, and things of that sort around this mushroom area. But we were surprised that we saw the ladybugs hanging out in there too. We did apply them to help with any aphids that we would have. This is typically a time of the year when we see a big influx of aphids right before we get the freezes for the year. I think that's all I have. Um, I put on here questions. I did want to say that Beautiful Edibles and American Mushroom and Spice, who is our block provider, and Ben Craft with and it's escaping my mind now.
I don't know.
Uh, he has a mushroom grow in northern Indiana. American Mushrooms and Spices in Bloomington, and we were in southern Indiana. We applied for a SARE grant, and it's Farmer Rancher grant, and we are developing a mushroom grow association for Indiana. We have named ourselves Fungi, and I should get in a little bit closer on this so that I can see.
Just close that.
It stands for the Fungal United Network Growers of Indiana, and we're going to promote Indiana mushrooms, Indiana mushroom growers, and Indiana mushroom foragers. And we've created a website. It's called fungind.com. You can scan the QR code and go to the site, or you can just type in the fundgind.com and see that with that platform, we hope to be at the Indiana Small Farm conference in March of next year, have a table and start handing out information, networking growers within the state. So if someone has an interest in growing mushrooms, commercially growing mushrooms, adding that as another revenue stream on their farm, this would be the place to get resources, connect, network, and hopefully have mushrooms recognized as a viable specialty crop within the state of Indiana, form a network where we have better recognition with the Department of Ag for this field, which is very specialized, and make it so that we can have a local production that would be more beneficial, keep us from having a lot of imports on this one product that is actually a better quality and a superior product if it's grown locally versus shipped in from long distances away. So that's what our goal is. Do we have any questions?
Hi, thank you so much. That was so great to see all of your befores and afters. We have one question. Would you be able to estimate how the mushroom as mulch has changed your water usage and how your soil fertility nutrient management has also changed?
So water usage, I guess the biggest thing that we see is during drought events, we still are just not watering as heavily as what we see other people watering. I hear people telling me that they're watering like on a daily basis, and Roger, you can attest to this more. We usually stay still at a 1 week rotation, even during droughts. I mean, occasionally we've ran twice a week
Very, very rarely.
during that 4 week drought event. But we do see that,
September was the biggest usage this year.
yep, September was the largest amount that we had as far as water use.
And that's tomatoes, which require a lot of water.
Right. We're not growing greens in September out in the field. They're inside starting to grow out in the field. but we typically stop doing greens in June, July, and August. And by that, I mean like leafy greens. We'll still have kale, mustards, those kind of things. But plants that would tolerate a little bit of drought.
Yeah, that I think that's one of the biggest things that like soil, we talk about soil a lot, about water retention and water sequestration, but I mean it really the bark, which is a majority of the substrate in there, um, becomes a literal sponge. So you're adding little pieces of natural sponge in your ground, and so I can imagine that's really holding a significant more amount of water. Um, I was wondering how that um, adding your mushroom blocks, because you'll be increasing the fungal communities along the pathways, has that affected your brassicas or any other types of greens by having a high fungal community even in the pathways? Like more pests, like they don't actually like that much fungi. Have you noticed anything like that?
I would say, and it's typically we saw the same thing just by bringing the ground covers in, is the pill bugs, slugs, those type of pests that like to live under cover. So still the same issues that we had even pre mushroom black time, that was always something we had. Fungal problems just really is airflow. It didn't come from the soil. It was coming from not enough airflow, too much wet. Uh, the tunnels really helped a lot with that. When you can control that you're not getting 5 inches of rain on your plants during that time when we have like a flooding rain like that, we just see water just pool all over the yard and everywhere, but not in those beds. And that was probably 90% of all the issues we were having with greens and any kind of disease. Uh, in fact, I would say we have less of the wilt. I can't remember what the technical name is on that,
Verticillium.
that we had with the greens when we first started. We really just don't see that. It's just a much healthier soil. Our soil tests show that we have a high organic matter. Recent soil test, we saw that our pH was higher. Yeah, which is kind of strange for us around here because we do have we run on public water and it's all well water. So we have limestone deposits in the area, and typically our pH would be exactly the opposite. And over the years we've had to go the other way.
Yeah.
That is interesting. You would imagine maybe that'll also like peter off once that fungal community down there also continues to grow. Gets a little bit more acidic, but huh. Does anyone else have any other questions? We have enough time for a little bit more of like you can unmute yourself and ask.
I could talk a little bit more about the mushrooms and what that did for us as far as the business. It Because it's 52 weeks a year round, it does require some hours because this is a succession crop like no other succession crop you've ever done. You're continually taking out the used blocks, putting new blocks in. We have some intricate spreadsheets that tell us like how many blocks, how much mushroom we want to produce for the customers that we have, and how many blocks are required to produce that amount of mushrooms. So we keep those charts going so that Roger knows exactly how many blocks to put into the grow of like lion's mane or oysters or pepinos that we have in there. So it's a pretty detailed operation. When I say that we did a low-tech mushroom grow, it took probably about 2 months or 3 months of consulting with American Mushroom and Spice and Court Carrington then, and also watching YouTube videos and deciding how we wanted to set up our grow operation. We do, Roger, jump in here whenever you can. We do a system where we have a water reservoir and a
Humidifier,
humidifier. Yeah.
ultrasonic unit that creates a mist that blows into the growing room.
So there are a lot of automated features on that so that we can walk away and let it go for a day or two. And we're down there Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays every week. We spend about 6 to 10 hours every week servicing that, harvesting, putting in the next crop of blocks. But it stays pretty much on its own because it's inside. It just is the same as a person's environment that you would be comfortable in, somewhere between 65, 75 degrees year round. High humidity. We try to keep it between 75 and 90% humidity in there. So a very, very wet room. And it's basically a plastic tent, similar to a tunnel, but very, very airtight. And then it has a circulation system that brings in fresh air because mushrooms breathe oxygen. They're just like human beings. And then they'll have spore and the carbon dioxide that will, is that carbon dioxide that comes off of them, and then that is goes out through a ductwork system. And we laugh about the fact that we're actually blowing mushrooms spores out to the city of Evansville. So every time we see like mushrooms growing on a tree in downtown Evansville, we're like, ah, those are our mushrooms there. So yeah, I mean, it's not harmful. There's fungi and spores everywhere. We all carry them around in our hair, on our body. That's another reason why this is perfect within like this separate room and a separate office. It's a clean room. So we always are freshly showered with clean clothes. When we go into the room, if anyone visits, they need booties on. We keep a separate set of shoes and all that we wear only there. We wear masks because spore lung is a real thing. It's just like coal miners from long ago. Mushroom growers have discovered that people that are exposed to the spores coming off of the growing operation on a daily basis all the time can actually get those in their lungs. I think if you look at potting soil that you work with that has the mycorrhizin in it, it actually says that you should wear respiratory protection. So I will say that to anybody, if you're working with mycorrhizin soil, you should be wearing some kind of mask or something to protect yourself. And we do there because we're exposed, you know, at least 3 to 4 times a week. And we don't want to get that into our lungs. And when we work with the mushroom blocks here at the house, most of the time we will wear masks while we're doing that too. I tell our workers I'd prefer if they wore PPE, just, you know, to keep from having any kind of overexposure to that. You never know when someone is going to be highly allergic to that or have some kind of respiratory issues where that would irritate it. So that would be the one warning that I have about working with the mushroom blocks.
Yeah, thanks for going into the business side of it, or as in your how you grow it. How do you sell your mushrooms? Like, are you taking pieces of them off and then selling them, or are you actually selling the whole blocks?
We harvest just like you would go out and get any plant. We did decide a lot of mushroom growers will cut off the block. There's that whole complication of like, once you cut it, then it's got a wound, it has an exposure of someplace where it could get contamination. If we pull off kind of like a root foot on it and you put it into storage, cold storage with that, it will live so much longer. So the mushrooms
It's still alive.
It's still alive. It's still growing, basically. We actually see them sometimes spore out in the boxes because they're still going through that growing process. If you cut mushrooms, then you're looking at 3 to 5 days. They're highly perishable. The way that we have this, we're seeing at least 7 days, sometimes 10 to 14 days. I wouldn't sell something that's 2 weeks old, but it's still viable. It's something that we eat, in our house. And then the other system that we put in place is that after that 7-day period, we do have a whole drying room where we have 3 commercial dryers, and we dry all of the mushrooms that are excess, because sometimes mushrooms are happy this time of year. They're very, very happy. And where a block would maybe only produce 1.5 to 2 pounds during its lifetime, right now they'll be producing at least 2.5, sometimes 3 or 4 pounds of mushrooms off of that same block, because it's the lovely time for them. The moon cycle is right, the tide is pulling right, it's moist and cool air outside, and they tend to stay moist and cool inside, so they love it. And that's when we had to figure out, what do we do with the mushrooms when there's more than we want coming out? But it's like any other crop, you need to have that overage so that you've got some wiggle room to cover your accounts. And we sell the majority of ours. I would say 80 to 90% of it is all wholesale, mainly fine dining establishments. We have done a little bit of retail direct to consumers and had like a mushroom subscription. I can't say that was a great program, but maybe someone else would do much better in another area. I just feel
The
like,
subscription works for wholesale.
yeah, subscription works great for wholesale accounts. To go out and talk to a restaurant and say, will you take 5 or 10 pounds of mushrooms every week, 52 weeks a year? It works great for them. They know that they can put it on the menu and it'll always be there.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah. And that's a great revenue stream to know that 52 weeks a year you can have that. And in fact,
It's a business plan.
it's a good business plan.
Well, thanks, Mary. We so appreciate, and Roger, we so appreciate your expertise, your passion, and your curiosity and your willingness to explore new venues for Indiana agriculture. I'm really excited to see what your grant produces, and I can't wait for next year's small farm conference to see if you guys are going to be there or presenting. So I really appreciate it. And anyone in the audience, if you come up with a question, just pop it in the chat, and we will try to get to you if we've got time. But I think right now we're going to move on to any updates that we have with the program in the state. So if you could stop sharing your screen, Mary, I'll share mine, and we'll move on.
Mhm.
Sorry, my internet's a little slow today.
I'll pop in and just share that once we get your slides, Mary, if that's okay, we will get those up on our website and the recording on YouTube as well, so that you can have access to those in the future.
Right. So I guess take it away, Ellie.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to share on this, just for all of you that are joining us, you know that we're here and we're still keeping on as much as we can during this government shutdown. I know it is really challenging for everyone and throws a lot of our work for a loop, and incredibly hard for a lot of the communities and farmers that we work with across the state. So I'm not trying to make light of this situation. I know it is hard on many fronts, but we're here, we're trying to keep up the good work and want to continue to work with you all to best do what we can. And go ahead and move to the next slide. During this time, we are still transitioning our program and kind of taking this precious, more insular moment to really figure out a new baseline for our work together through the Urban Soil Health Program. So we did lose staff at the beginning of October. And I thought for a while it would just be me, unfortunately, working as the lead of Urban Soil Health. And then at the final hour, due to a lot of really great work behind the scenes with our NRCS Indiana federal partners, we were able to secure a new contribution agreement. And this is part of a statewide approach to still be able to provide some small farm support for our producers, diversified producers. So what that means for us is that we will have 2 small farm conservationists, so our north and south. And we have gone through an internal hiring process and been able to retain Tanvi Ladd as our north program small farm conservationist, and then Megan Ayers as our southern small farm conservationist. And then I will stay on as program director and then also have some Southwest Central counties as well to cover, because I don't want to miss out on all that fun. So we're covering the Mississippi River watershed, which is about 85 counties. And then, funding is guaranteed through this contribution agreement for 21 months, but the hope is to be able to expand. So here's the map, and we have recently learned that Michael Ryan was hired through Allen County's contribution agreement. So as mentioned, this is part of a statewide effort. So there is a similar contribution agreement with Allen County to cover the Great Lakes areas. So this will be our statewide team to work collaboratively to support small farm clients. We're going to be shifting away from as much education, outreach, and direct support of local soil and water and working groups, and really relying on the continuation of those groups to support, a lot of the backyard growers and really small scale producers. And then taking more of the kind of pheasants forever, quail forever model of helping district conservationists as well as other local planners that do conservation planning on small scale. And you'll be able to tap us for helping those more challenging clients in your counties. I mean, challenging by they might have more complexity of their operations that you may not be familiar with. So they might have livestock, forestry, flower operations, fruit, nut, even mushrooms, like Mary mentioned. So we'll be getting, once the shutdown ends, we'll be getting new training from NRCS on, their processes and procedures for helping to, enter into financial assistance programs like EQIP and CSP. So we can help even more so than we have been. But it's kind of a natural continuation of our program to be able to be even more of that support person with planning on small farms. I think that's about all I wanted to share on that right now. Just stay tuned, sign up for our newsletter if you're not already, because we'll be sharing out more information and this map soon. I'll drop our link to our website that has been updated. So for counties where you may have had Terry or Casey covering your counties, there's been some shifts. So you can now look up your county and your staff who covers your county. Mike is also on that website. I think that's it. Any questions so far on that? Really excited to get started on this new phase. Thanks for bearing with us as we transition. We're still here. Reach out to us. We need things to do, want things to do, want conservation to continue on small farms and not feel like our farmers are alone in that. Want to keep learning, get out on farms. Yeah, just excited to keep it up.
And our emails are the same to reach out to.
Yeah, right now, reach us at either the @urbansoilhealth.org or our state association IASWCD emails. The @urbansoilhealth points to those. During the government shutdown, we're not able to access the NACDnet emails.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Ellie. I appreciate it. As we move forward, we just wanted to let you guys know of other events that are happening in our districts and across the state. So obviously today, urban updates. Tomorrow, Organic U is happening at the Hendricks County Fairgrounds in Danville. That is a partnership between Purdue and Marble Seed out of Wisconsin. We're really excited about that. Additionally, New Farmer U is happening this weekend in Bloomington. That's through a partnership between Partners in Food and Farming and Marble Seed as well. If you happen to have a moment, check out both of those all three of those organizations. They're doing really great work in the state and really helping small scale farmers learn how to scale up, how to be better farmers, how to access finances. And we're really excited to have them, to host them, and to know them. Then on November 8th in South Bend, we've got the Soil Health Summit. Tanvi is going to be speaking, as well as our former Northeast specialist, Terry Thyssen. And then on the 17th, I just want to remind everyone that Persephone days begin. So those are the days in which we're getting less than 10 hours of sun a day. So if you are growing over winter, your plants are going to stop actively growing. They're just sort of going to be in a holding pattern until Persephone days end at the end of January. On December 2nd, the Living Farm series is going to have our high tunnel build at Unvarnished Farm in Deputy, which is in Jefferson County. That's my farm. So if you're interested in learning how to build a high tunnel, we'll be hosting that in December. And December 5th is World Soil Day. So don't forget to celebrate by getting your fingers out in the soil if you can, and thanking thanking all of our soil microbes for doing the heavy lifting. January 7th through 9th is National No-Till Conference in St. Louis, so you still have plenty of time to sign up for that. January 18th, our first Living Farm series for 2026 is going to be at Let Us Learn Inc., which is a community farm organization dedicated to ending food insecurity in urban areas just north of the Louisville area. We're going to be reskinning a high tunnel that day, so that'll be a fun project. And as I said before, Persephone Days ends at the end of January, so January 23rd. Don't forget to pop into our website as we continue to post events, both at through Urban Soil Health and our partner organization. We are working on rebranding our organization with the help of our advisory council and our other partners. So if you're interested in being part of that conversation, please contact us because we're going to be meeting next week about it. Let's see, what else do we have? Our next Urban Updates is December 3rd at 9 a.m. The topic and speaker have yet to be determined, but we will continue to host our Urban Updates every first Wednesday of the month. So if no one else has any questions or has any partner shares, we'll say goodbye for this month and keep sharing. Keep letting us know what you're up to so we can share it out in our networks, and keep telling small scale producers that we're here for them. We're happy to come out. We're happy to do technical assistance. We're still working. So please let everyone know, and thanks for your passion and thanks for your patience. And we're excited about our new agreement and working with you in this new capacity. So have a great day, everybody. Stay warm and enjoy this beautiful day.